Hey guys, Tom here from Metalloud, and I'm here to review the new album from Andy Black called The Shadow Side. Andy Black is the solo side project of Andy Biersack of the Black Veil Brides. Now, Black Veil Brides are a band that are pretty kind of split. They're a band that people either really like or really hate. A lot of people don't even try to get into them because of their aesthetic as well as their fan base, which kind of can be a little bit off-putting and seem dorky, cheesy, whatever at times, and I understand that. Particularly, I've never really liked anything that they've done up until their last album that they did, and honestly what got me into that was hearing interviews with Andy Biersack and just hearing about the passion that he has for music and for everything that he does and for art, and it really kind of spoke to me listening to him go on about his passion for that. So it kind of got me into at least giving them a try, and I liked what I heard from the last album. And I was kind of excited to hear what he was going to do for his solo work as well. Now, it seems like you can't really have one of those alternative bands without going solo at some point, or at least producing something as a side project. We have William Control of Aiden, Davey Havoc has Black Audio with Jade from AFI, even Matt Skiba has his own thing going on from Alkaline Trio. And it really kind of feels like Andy Black, Andy Biersack on this album has some pretty big shoes to fill as far as alternative rock star turning solo. And he actually does a pretty good job on this album, I would say. It's not a perfect album by any means, but there are definitely a lot of songs that will stand out and that will definitely get stuck in your head. Particularly a track called Ribcage that I really enjoy. It's got this kind of dark synth pop style to it, and it definitely gets stuck in your head. It almost reminds me of something from Black Audio. I really kind of enjoy that dark dancey feel to it. The opening track, Homecoming King, is kind of hit or miss for me. It's kind of a mixed bag. I like the music behind it, especially the fact that they're really kind of trying different things. He's definitely incorporating a lot of different elements here. You have horns on that track, you have xylophones, you have the kind of broken piano feel to it. There's so much going on that song, and then lyrically is where it kind of loses me. It feels like it's something that's kind of trying to appeal to maybe that younger demographic and those fans, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just not something that really kind of caught me. Thankfully, the next track definitely did. Then you have a song actually with Matt Skiba called Stay Alive, which feels more like a power pop kind of song than the other songs on this album. It definitely has more rock influence to it. It could do without the whoa-ohs that are thrown in the beginning and throughout. They kind of feel like filler, and they just kind of feel a little bit cheesy. Not so much something I would like. With the lyrics on this album, it's definitely kind of all over the place. There's a huge range of things like failed relationships to one-night stands, like the song We Don't Have to Dance, which is basically about that. It's kind of an anthem, definitely kind of poppy and more upbeat. And there's also just songs about kind of remembering the past and either looking back fondly or not so fondly. Thankfully, like I said, I think he really kind of stepped things up with the lyrical content on this album, and nothing feels really too over the top or cheesy as they do sometimes with Black Veil Brides, which is something I generally didn't like about those albums. Thankfully, the most important part of a solo album that needs to stand out, which is that person's voice, really does on this album. Andy Biersack has always had a voice that I've really enjoyed. He has such a dynamic range that it's definitely on the lower side of things, but he just really kind of definitely does well when with whatever he's singing about. And it's something I've always liked about him personally. That, really carries over here, and it definitely stands out on this album. He really carries it with his voice and his vocal work on here, and even when they have it layered, so it's him vocal, with the vocals over his own vocals, it just works so well, and it's so fitting that he doesn't really need the guest backup vocals. I mean, they definitely fit. I know he has his now wife, Juliet Sims, on here, Matt Skiba, as I mentioned. I think there's a few others that appear on this album, and they definitely are a nice addition, but I think Andy Biersack has a voice that's just that good where he doesn't really need any kind of guests to enhance it or anything like that. I just think they do definitely, again, they definitely fit in, they definitely work, but they're not a necessary thing. It's not like the songs would have been anything less without those vocalists. And I think that's something that really kind of stands out about this album is Andy Biersack's vocal work. One of the only issues with this album is the fact that there are so many ideas that the album itself ends up feeling a little bit disjointed. The range of the musical styles, from rock to synth pop to almost industrial at times, really kind of just feels all over the place. There's no real cohesiveness with the album itself, and it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it is a little bit off-putting. It feels like there's just so many ideas that were put in and nobody really gave thought to making it kind of at least have a similar baseline style. And while that's good for individual songs, that there is so much variety on here, as an album, it's a little bit jarring at times when it goes from one style to the next, when you might have been enjoying that, and it really gives you time to kind of stick with something. And I can definitely see that being a positive thing for some people, but for me personally, it just makes the album feel a little bit, like I said, kind of disjointed. But overall, it is definitely a great album. There's a lot of songs on here to like. There are those kind of ballady tracks, like the ending track, The Void, which feels effortless. It doesn't feel like a ballad that was written to try to be anything that it's not. There's the poppier songs like We Don't Have to Dance. There's the kind of darker songs like Ribcage. And then you have the more rock songs like Louder Than Your Love on here. So that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, as far as it's kind of a double-edged sword for the variety of this album. There's going to be something for everyone on here. And even if you're not a fan of Black Veil Brides, if that's kind of what if you kind of scoff at that, if you immediately hear them and dismiss this album just because of that association, I really suggest give them a chance if you are into any of that kind of dark pop style things. Like I said, like anything like Black Audio or anything that Matt Skiba has done, anything like that, definitely give this album a chance. I think you might be pleasantly surprised.